You slipped up. So what do you do now? The first thing to realize is how common this is. In our minds, we think progress is a linear path, but it's not. There are ups and downs along the way. So it's okay to take a step backwards as long as you're prepared to take 2 steps forward. There's a lot to say about motivation, discipline, but I think the most important thing is the view. So what is your view on what you're doing? So let's say you have a fitness regimen or a diet and nutrition regimen or a meditation routine, and you slip up. You didn't go to the gym for a week, you stop meditating, whatever it is. What will happen is something in life will come and knock you on your ass and make you realize like, oh, I slipped up. And you'll feel a measure of suffering that comes from that. Typically, there's self-criticism. There's all these things that come with that. And there's a depressed feeling that for most of us actually keeps us from performing. And in a way, this is good because life is delivering you what you need to get back on track. And you can always depend on life to do that. For some of us, unfortunately, it takes us a long time to have enough blows from life to get on track. And for others, we learn to be sensitive. So just a little bit of suffering teaches us like, oh, something's wrong. I need to change something about the way I'm behaving. So the second point I'm trying to make here is look to life to provide you with the guidance you need to move in the right direction. There are 2 other things I want to mention here. What you're doing, in my opinion, needs to be joyful, and it can be joyful. Not joyful in the future, not joyful when there's some goal attained 10 years from now, but joyful in the task itself. Right? So even in my business, I try to impart that upon my team. Like, can we find joy in the process rather than needing to get to a certain point in the business? Where is the joy? It's interesting from a brain chemistry standpoint, this is related to dopamine, which most people think is the pleasure molecule, but it's actually not. It's more closely tied to motivation. And there's a way to kind of rewire your brain so that dopamine is released while you're doing what most people would consider to be hard. In the efforting, there can be joy. There can be more motivation. And that just comes from practice and changing the way that you perceive things, which is something that takes time. The second thing I want to talk about is confidence. So many of us don't even start down a path because we lack confidence in ourselves. I've had so many students over the years who've had some kind of like tangential idea about meditation and a thought like, oh, this could be good for me, but it's too hard for me. I can't do it. All these kind of like excuses that come down to a lack of confidence. So one of the things my teacher, Rob Burbea, said that I love is the vast majority of meditators drastically underestimate their capacity, their capability, the vast majority. There are some people who are like overconfident to the point of where they just like get lazy because they think they're the shit, right? But those are few. Far more common are people who lack confidence, and that lack of confidence leads to a lack of energy. So we need to be confident in ourselves and just know that the best that life has to offer is waiting for us. It's available to us. It's something that we can access if only we reach our potential. And that potential is going to involve discipline, work, energy. The Buddha spoke about many, many factors of the path. So a factor of the path is essentially a quality of mind that is developed on the path to enlightenment, the path to peace. So there are tens, probably hundreds of different factors that he spoke of, right? But if you were to look at the Pali Canon, which is the oldest recorded kind of body of work from the Buddha's teachings in ancient India, the one factor that he spoke the most of is called virya. This is a Pali word. It's spelled V-I-R-I-Y-A, virya. So he spent more time talking about virya than anything else. Virya means energy, effort, enthusiasm. It's really interesting, right? Like Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. Right? And there's like a lot of meditators who think that what they need to do is a non-doing, a non-trying. And there is actually space for that in this practice. But the emphasis should be on effort, should be on progress. Spiritual progress is something that we need to consider as precious. And the desire for spiritual progress is incredibly precious. A lot of people fall into the mistake of they think the whole path is about having no desires, no craving, right? It's actually not the case. There are kind of counterintuitive. Like, for example, we need the desire to end all desires. That is a desire that we need to cultivate. And eventually, somewhere along the path, probably, way into the advancement of a meditator, we can start to enter into these states of mind in which there is no doing, there is no need for some of these goals and attainments. But in the beginning, this needs to be nourished. So hopefully that was helpful. We talked about what to do when you slip up from a non-meditative perspective as well as from a meditative perspective.